Welcome to the Riders Lounge. I'm Mark Fawcett.
And I'm Shane Johnsen.
And today, let's talk bindings. We are discussing bindings, namely the top, well, there's got to be more than five.
It's kind of like a top 5 plus.
Plus.
They're all down here below us. So, yeah, this is...
It'll probably be titled top 5.
Fawcett and I love certain things, but those maybe aren't the average consumer. So we are also looking at numbers and being like, all right, this is a big average of what we see a lot of guys or gals purchasing. I think that's really important, and we've been doing that with boards too. And yeah, it was hard to kind of pin it down, but I think we've done a good job.
We got a lot of bindings upstairs.
Yeah.
A lot of different ones.
We do. So this is, I think this is correct. And this is like if you're going to buy one pair of bindings for the season, you're riding resort, you're hoping to find some powder. We can throw whatever title around this we want, but these are the bindings that we think you should be looking at if you're looking to buy a set of bindings.
100%.
Period. Because there's so much tech, we have the trusty MacBook here because, you know, there's certain things we don't want to miss. I mean, the new Falcor where we're going to start, there's a lot of tech in this.
I think we're starting at the top.
We are.
Really,
This has to be talked about and probably deserves its own episode. But there's been so much hype around it. People have been asking for this binding since the summer. The biggest thing for me, I only got one run on this. It was amazing. You know I love the Ultra. This has a 2-layer base construction. This is what I noticed the most. This is what I'm going to key in. Fawcett's going to talk about a bunch of other things, but this is the biggest change that I found. The Ultra has a similar thing, but not to this degree. This has a frame around it, really structurally strong frame all around the binding system, and then all that beautiful, what are they using? EVAs, I better look it up. But everything on the inside is giving you that natural board feel, but not in a squishy way. It's powerful. It's like right now, this is Travis Rice's binding. Like it's no joke. It's malleable, but responsive.
It's very responsive, yeah.
You know, that's the best way I can say it. And I'll look this up right now why Fozzie wraps around the high back too, which is just mental.
The high back is different on this one. So he's really he's gone vector on it.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, knowing that if this is your front foot and you're leaning in and you're goofy like myself, and you're leaning into a heel turn, that this portion supports the corner, the outside corner, stronger than the inside where you actually want some rotation to be able to bring your leg in past it. So this high back will flex asymmetrically. Even though the outline, the silhouette is symmetrical, it'll flex asymmetrically. And because it's all cut away, of course, it's really light. Its strength to stiffness ratio is like really, really good. So
10% lighter than the last high back.
There you go.
Which in binding talk is
a big deal.
That's a big
deal. So I got a couple runs on this binding on a Capita Megadeth.
Yeah, you were riding the Megadeth.
And so it was a really good call. I had like the most expensive combo at the joint that day. And yeah, it is pretty amazing. And like Shane said, you have a soft sort of feel in general.
Let me get this right. Thermoformed EVA molecular bushing.
All right. So essentially,
I love the terminology.
The skeleton, the frame that the heel cup is in, is pretty much a perimeter. And attached to that, of course, too, is your disc mount, which in this case, in the Falcor, is mini disc. So 4x2. And that's good for just having a smaller footprint. You can actually sneak your stance out further as well, to the back, like I like to do. The other thing that's really cool about this, and Travis has been really into this, is just because he rides so much damn powder, is how the snow reacts to your binding when it's coming by. And he's put on these like really cool fairings, I would call them. Is there a name for them?
There probably is. I'll dig it up too. But what I found with this, because I did ride this in powder, it's like a little bit of boat hull.
Yeah, of course.
Blasting snow away from your foot.
1,000%.
So sick.
That's how it's designed.
Yeah. Let's see what they call it.
But also, in theory, if you're really bending your board hard, it will transition that spot. Instead of just hitting a hard edge on the binding, there'll be a little bit more transition. It's pretty soft. I'd say it's more of a powder fairing, but looks really cool for sure. And it does function.
And did we talk forged carbon in the high back
Yeah,
there?
forged carbon. So this, what used to be a T, we used to call it the Travis T on the back.
Yeah.
Is forged carbon. It's made by that one guy in the factory. If you watched one of our last episodes,
Fozzie was just over in Italy.
I was just over there watching them with this giant press.
That blew my mind. One dude is making all the forged carbon at you.
Every forged carbon
What was his
part.
name?
Mirko, I believe.
Mirko.
You're the man.
Dude. Awesome.
Good job.
Just awesome. Yeah.
But
so the ankle strap, the Hybrid 1.0 ankle strap, this was a big update for me. We were into those sort of exoskeleton looking straps for a while. We've gone back to material and grippy material, and I did notice that right away. It hugs the boot a little bit better. The 1.0, this is obviously new. It's more of a V-cut shape, and it's just so much more comfortable. It really is. There's not a lot going on here.
there's still a little bit of like that skeletal structure up above it.
But this is just ripping the boot
It's
better.
a suspension bridge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
There's like
Yeah.
some really good. It's responsive, but it forms really well to the boot. So the way, just the nature of the material, it's a little bit stretchy too.
I just
it
found
forms over really
less
well.
pressure points.
Yeah.
Less pressure points with this setup. So the Hybrid 1.0, I thought that was another update. But again, biggest thing I noticed was that base plate. Right when I got on it, everything I love about the Ultra, this was a much more aggressive, more responsive version of, everything that my board could do underfoot. This kind of does it better and a little bit quicker.
Absolutely, you're right. This does sort of deserve its own episode, but
It really does. But
we got some other
today,
bindings.
We got more bindings.
oh, he gets the pink
I get
one.
the pink one.
All right. Burton. This is a real classic. I know that a huge portion of their team loves this binding, and we do too. It's the Cartel X. Cartel has been around, oh gosh,
Yeah, man.
got to be 20 years.
We're going to show our age here.
We
yeah.
are going to show our age. So the Cartel has been around in the lineup for a really long time. What differentiates, this is the Cartel X from a standard Cartel mostly, is that there's more fiberglass composite, more fiberglass actual micro material in the plastic that they inject in the mold.
Yeah.
So lighter and a bit stronger. Classic Burton design. I'm a big fan of being able to rotate the high backs really nicely while still maintaining good contact, I guess it would be, along the top of the heel cup. So Burton's really, as far as I know, I think Burton's the only one with this system where the high back isn't connected at sort of like the strap hinge point. It's actually underneath on these two sliders, so you can move it fore and aft and rotate it. So it's a system that I'm pretty fond of. Their strap system, a little bit opposite of what we just saw,
But this one doesn't lend itself to pressure points. Burton did a really good job with this version, and it's quick, it's responsive. When I say quick, I mean it's like now, when you just think about turning, it does engage that strap quickly, because when we're turning, we're really just ripping a strap out of our bindings, essentially. So this one's stiff, but it doesn't have those pressure points I've associated some of the others with. Ratcheting system is, do we have the, this, standard ratcheting system on this
they've gone back. So for a couple of
Yep.
years, they had the double
double
take,
takes, yep.
and they've kind of come back. The teams, just
team
sort of-
decision, yeah.
The team
yeah.
were the ones that came back, and they're like, we kind of like. I don't know if it's just like in their head they like the old style, but they've gone back to the old, just traditional ladders and ratchets. Pretty straightforward Burton binding, and tested and true for
Yeah.
sure.
Yep.
They're strong as hell. We never see one of these coming back with anything ever.
No, and this is, again, it's one of those top sellers. We kind of went back over 3 years and really looked at, especially some of these legacy bindings, which I would consider this, something that's been around a while. Same with for the women. The Lexa outsells the Lexa X, probably because it's just a tad softer, maybe a little more forgiving, 15% less fiberglass, but all the same attributes. Another thing we should mention too is the forward lean flat on these. It's clean, it works really well, and you can kind of micro adjust. You're not taking big leaps to get little bits of forward lean. So I think that's another thing that's pretty key there. Very lightweight, you know, good fiberglass, short strand fiberglass content, so it makes them responsive. Reflex disc.
Reflex discs are nice.
The base plate kind of moves underfoot as well. There's not a lot of plastic material, just holding the disc, but there's not a lot in dead center, so that allows your board to move underfoot too.
And even the disc is able to
disc,
flex.
yeah, flexes a little bit also. So again, something very similar to what we talked about with the last binding, allowing your snowboard to just be a snowboard underfoot. No dead zones or anything to that degree. Yeah, that's the Lexa and Cartel X. Oh, we're going this route. All right.
We're going this route.
Fozzie's definitely a little more on
How about
point
the other
with
one?
This one. Well, yeah, we could put these both in the same range. So this one we brought into the store last year, but we've tested these prior.
First of all, it's the 9-decker Supermatic. So these are your step-in, step-on binding systems.
We'll categorize them together.
We'll put them together from that perspective, just so we can not have a 1-hour show for you today. Burton, step-on, step-in is new, but Burton is really like given birth again to the concept.
Very new system, of course.
And and I'm an avid fan. I've been running step-ons almost exclusively. Like, I mean, I do 5 or 6 days a year not on step-ons and 100 days a year total. So like 95% of my time on step-ons.
Really committed to that, yeah.
I love them. I like the way you are magically held onto your board. So traditional bindings, and there's pros to it, but traditional bindings hold you down, force you down onto the board. This, you're just sort of like magically glued to the board. Love it. The system works really well. I haven't had any issues, especially with these newer systems. They're silent, they're quiet, they feel the same, the response is the same.
The first one had this squeak going on.
Yeah, the first edition.
I remember jumping on those.
And there was a fix to it. There was a fix to it.
We fixed them.
But anyway, Burton have these step-ons refined really, really well. The boots work well with them. The boots feel like normal snowboard boots. I mean, you have these tiny little cleats at the front, one in the back. This is a big seller for us.
Oh yeah, one thing I'll say too, remember how I just talked about when we turn, we're trying to rip a strap off a binding? Well, you don't get that here. So the forefoot, your upper forefoot just has no pressure. I went with the swath boot, which doesn't even have the strap on it. And man, I gotta say, I mean, you're just comfortable. You can sometimes, foot fatigue can plague a day, and this eliminates a lot of it.
For sure, because I
does.
ride so much and I'm in my setup for a long time each day, I have less foot fatigue with the step-ons.
And it's quite cool too, the fulcrum point, the fact that you're mounting here, and we've talked this, we have episodes you should go back to, and Mark really deep dives this a few ago, but that fulcrum point being low, when I would just think about turning, I was already initiating an edge. And that just took me a run to learn that. Yeah. Once you learn that, it's powerful, and that's why you usually use them in bank slaloms.
Oh yeah,
you'll use them
100%. High performance.
Exactly.
I use them on pow day. Like, there's really nothing I don't use them for.
Yeah.
Maybe old school half pipe when we're trying to like tweak out stuff and everything. But yeah. Anyway, Burton step-on.
That is, again, like we're talking for 2025. This is the stuff you should be looking at if you're buying bindings. And the new Supermatics as well. We did discuss, Mark has a set of the carbon, and they're phenomenal. The weight, you know, it's noticeable. There's no
noticeable.
Question.
It's noticeable.
No question.
And that was probably the only thing people had against this binding last year when it came out. Some people were like, it's a little heavy, but I didn't really notice that too much.
And
with
I didn't
the carbon
either,
one,
actually.
with the carbon one, it's not going to be an issue. Like the biggest thing with this, it is easy in, really easy in, easy out, is that once you do go in, you're instantly fully tight. Like you don't have to go back like you do on normal
Start
setups and ratcheting and go down and ratchet, you stand up, you go down again and hit it 2 more times, completely unnecessary. Like once you get these set up tight and you need to be able to see this thing, and you come out, you go in, you go back in, and crack, you're just like fully in there, which was cool. It's fast. So I had a couple of times, we have one super poorly built cat track, the new one at Whitewater. And if the snow is slow, you got to take your foot out and push like 5 or 6 steps. And I was just like, push, back in. I mean,
It is really
fast.
fluid, and I can use that term for this. Like it's the movement's fluid, it's easy. The other thing I like is I would just reach down and unstrap like I was in normal bindings, and that's not a big deal. You can do that. You can exit this like a normal snowboard binding, and I did it a few times just
by accident, by habit. Yeah, yeah.
But on a crazy deep POW day, you never know. If there's a little bit of trick getting in and out, at least you know you have that option too. Boom, I'm out. You can get in a traditional style. And I just think this is, in this category, these are the two right now to be talking about for sure. So
both of them, I'll just, because I was pushing down, both of them have a system, because people ask, oh, but what if it's powder and you get all this snow on there? Both of them have systems where it enables you to engage even with some snow underneath there. And as the snow sort of makes its way out, they'll ratchet down into another level of tightness.
Couple stages.
Both of them. The Burton has 2 stages. This has, I think this has at least 3, maybe even 4.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see them in here, and you can hear it like. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6.
So as you're moving around and you're working that snow out, they're just going to keep locking down, and it's a fail-safe. Basically, it's really smart and ingenious on both parts there.
And these rode well.
Yeah.
Like I actually, I know this is in here for a reason. This sort of like linear strap, and you actually want to run it kind of loose. It's in there to keep this main strap from like folding down and just always being in the right spot.
As your foot slides in.
But overall, like I love the way it sort of like hugs the whole top of my boot. So I actually loved toe turns on this thing, were amazing.
Yeah, these are performance bindings.
They're definitely a performance binding.
No question.
You're not going to lose performance with this. You're just going to gain ease of access.
Yep, exactly.
Both of them.
All right. What's next? Oh yeah, I get those ones, eh?
Force.
Here we go. Force and the Trilogy. So this came out last year. Trilogy is the women's, Force for the men's. This came out last year, and within, I think within November, it was our top seller. And with our team too, a lot of the team riders definitely got on this binding right away. My biggest takeaway is always this bushing system they brought in. You can see it really well on that one. I always liken it to deflating your 4x4 tires a little bit. It just gave you a little bit of plush dampness in a very responsive, powerful binding. Also, the strap upgrade. I'll look up what it's called again, but that upgrade and strap was probably one of my favorite things.
This is
actually so nice.
This is actually one of my favorite straps. It's a little bit, maybe because I'm just used to like old school straps, but everything's just a little bit more flush against the strap, the way the structure skeleton sort of goes over top of it. It was a very, very comfortable binding. The gas pedal's actually quite soft on this compared to the rest of the binding that has some stiff parts. These bushings do work really well. It allows the binding to actually, I don't want to say rock, but you can get a little bit of movement, which we actually like.
Yes, yeah.
It's compliance. It's not slop. It's progressive compliance. So the more you tweak on it, the harder it's going to resist, but there is an element to be able to like move this binding a little bit.
Yeah.
It gives you a much freer feeling, which is something a lot of times we're after. Particularly when I ride powder, like I want to just like take some bungee cords and strap myself to the board. I want to surf it, you know?
And it's a Duraflex base plate as well, so it's not a whole giant chunk of plastic. There is lots of areas milled out where there is just that EVA.
Yeah, it's just EVA.
It's a non-stick EVA, and that just works its way through. You're not getting, again, I'm going to bring up dead zones or anything like that, but when you stand on plastic, there's another opportunity for foot fatigue.
Yeah.
Stand on metal, there's foot fatigue. So this was another binding in the mix where I don't feel like you're going to get that. You're not going to get that from the Falcor. You're not going to get that from the Cartel X. These binding systems are all allowing your foot to make movements, and that's an important thing to me. Every time I'm looking for a binding, that is definitely something I'm looking for. Hence why, even though it's not on the table, I would have put the Ultra here, but I'm a bit of a smaller dude, so for me, that's, that binding's a little bit stiffer for me than it is for Fawcett. So of course, most riders have been going to this for free riding, the Ultra sometimes for freestyle, even though I think it's the best free ride binding ever. But again, smaller dude, that's why.
And then for bang for your buck, bang for your buck for like a performance binding, this is really good. So these are $4.29 Canadian, roughly
men's and women's.
Roughly like, what would it be, like $3.55 US-ish, something like that?
Our dollar's pretty bad now. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. Hey, vehicles are almost the same, but in Canadian dollars,
That's
we do better. If you want to buy a car from the States, you come up to Canada.
But I think that plays into it too. You get the magnesium buckles, but for men or women, this is for value too and performance.
We sell
really
like that's
is.
probably our number one selling
This is our
female
number one.
binding
no
upstairs.
Question. Yeah, no question.
For sure.
All right, so we're on to the last binding, which because it is a really good seller, we sold out last year. That's not the binding. We sold out last year, and we received most of our order this year, which we've already sold through on. So we're just going to magically, Morrison's going to place it here in some kind of thing. The Jones Mercury. This has been on our list before, and it is, so as we know now, that Now has moved on to move into two binding companies known as Jones and Yes. We do the Yes IPO, which is a more entry-level binding. We do a lot of those upstairs, but the binding everybody goes for, and the one Mark and I especially would usually choose to ride when we're riding the Jones stuff, has been the Mercury. No question.
Yep.
I'll pull this up for some spec here.
So the big thing with this, and Jeremy got on them back when JF had formulated Now bindings, is the skate tech. So that's like the big feature with these bindings. So it has an axle, it has a system where the where the mounting disc is somewhat separate from the rest of the binding based off of an axle system, and then the whole thing is able to like essentially float.
And you can change out those bushings,
Absolutely.
different durometers, like skate wheels. There's a lot of micro adjusting you can do with that system. And it does. It's similar to what we talked about with the Force. It gives those
Very similar.
the power points of a binding a little bit of dampness and a little bit of compression system to just make the ride enjoyable.
Yeah,
They're really enjoyable bindings to
I would
ride.
say I have a long toe turn traverse that I do all the time at Whitewater, and it is sort of my testing ground for bindings.
Coming
to
off
see
of old backsides there.
Yep. That's one. I have another one actually on the Silver King side, but anyway, my feet didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Like as one of the only standard strap bindings where I'm like, oh my God, like very little foot fatigue in comparison because there's some flexing progressive compliance in the system.
Yeah, and this is the middle of the road for Jones too. It's not the highest end binding, but it's the best value, and I think that's why we see the numbers we do. And every time either of us ride it, it's like, this is a damn good snowboard
Yeah, it's
binding.
a really good
It really
snowboard
is. So
binding.
we didn't physically have it, but that one is also, that is a must for the list, no question. Yeah, and then moving on, we're gonna try to get the boots done soon. We do wanna just reach out to everybody and check out Instagram. We do a lot of drops on there. Sometimes you'll know what we're about to release a day before. So hit us up on Instagram, follow us there. Haven't mentioned that before. Subscriptions also, we need help with subscribers. That's how this whole thing works. So the more subscribers we get, the more we can keep bringing you guys content. So yeah, thanks to everyone that already has. Really appreciate that, and just keep spreading the word, really.
Spread the word, especially if you're in the United States. We're a little bit harder to find on a general search, so just tell your friends about it. Would be super helpful for us, for sure.
Yeah, and then the website, tributeboardshop.com. We're always on there. We can help you out. The Patreon, where we can answer questions more and get into members' deep dives. So any of the Patreon members, we're there for that. If you have any questions or updated episodes you'd like to see, questions on episodes, that's a good place to hit us up too, as well as the comments below. The three of us do our best, but it is a three-man team, so we're doing what we can there. And lastly, we just want to thank our sponsors. Folks at Cole, thanks you guys so much, helping us keep the lights on. BALDFACE, the whole crew there, same thing. They're just right over the mountain here, and the snow is piling up, so we're stoked on that. We're also supported by NBC, James Brand Knives, and Stoke the Fire Hotsauce.
How come I didn't get one of these?
But yeah, guys, thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you on the next one.